Okay, we are in Halacha 21 of chapter 271. Reish Ayin Aleph of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, laws of Kiddush. So Halacha 20, the previous Halacha, was the detail of one who has less than enough wine for 2 cups or 2 revius of wine, and how to manage to use that for his Friday night Kiddush and his Shabbos day Kiddush. And essentially the solution is to save a little bit of the wine before you drink it. And that way, that little bit of wine is not pogum. And then you can use the remainder of your Friday night Kiddush cup for the next day by making it, by unpogumizing it, if that's a word, by using the little bit of wine you took out before you drank from it. And the question is, did you take that wine out after you made the bracha before you drank, if you can get the virtue of having a full cup? Or if you took that wine out before you even made Kiddush, if you anyways weren't having the value of a full cup. That's what we just did. That was Halacha Chaf. Now comes Halacha Chaf Aleph and throws into the mix Havdalah. Because till now we were juggling the responsibilities of Friday night Kiddush and Shabbos day Kiddush, and how to manage that with minimal wine. But now the truth is you have a third cup, which is Havdalah. So it says the Alter Rebbe Halacha Chaf Aleph, Halacha 21. All the above is kishiyesh like kois acher l'Havdalah. The entire discussion above about splitting his cup between Friday night Kiddush and Shabbos day Kiddush is only if he has a third cup available to him for his Havdalah. So his Havdalah is already covered. And because he's not worried about his Havdalah, because he has a cup of wine put aside, he now has 1 cup left that he has to split between Friday night and Shabbos day.
Next up here. Didn't we learn once that he can do the Kiddush over the wine and not drink it and save it for the next time?
There was certain opinions that he can do that for benching, but we avoided that opinion. Yeah, there was the opinion to do that. That's right. If you were going to bench right afterwards, yeah.
That's for people who.
But here, this is the next day already.
Want to drink wine with their benching.
That's right. And even then, there was the opinion that said that's not good enough, right? So we had a whole scenario to avoid that. But here, it's the next day, but you can't. If you make nagafa, you have to drink something now. Okay. So all the above was if he has a third cup of wine already set aside for Havdalah, he has 1 cup that he's trying to split between Friday night and Shabbos day. Why is that? Shimloike, because if he doesn't have extra wine for Havdalah, so now he only has 1 cup, enough with 2 revius in, or enough wine with just 2 cups for Friday night and Shabbos day, but doesn't have a third for Havdalah. Mutav, it's best, that he should leave that for Havdalah, the Kaddish al pas, and make Kiddush on bread. Better do that. Kaddish alav, than making Kiddush on wine, and he won't have anything to make Havdalah, because you can't make Havdalah on bread. So to explain. So he has his bread for his meals, Friday night and Shabbos day. Let's just say he has 3 loaves. It doesn't have to be full load, but 3 loaves. So he can make lechem mishnah Friday night, eat 1, save 1. The next day he takes his 3rd loaf and the second one left for Friday night and has lechem mishnah. Okay, so he has enough bread for 2 lechem mishnah, just 3 loaves. Now he has 3 revius of wine, right? So he takes 1 revius, that's 1 measure, puts it aside for Havdalah. The last 2, he splits between Friday night and Shabbos day in the manner as described above, where he fills up the whole cup, makes Kiddush, pours a little bit out for the next day, drinks his Kiddush, uses what's left out to make it not pogum, and has that for Shabbos day. Okay. Now, what if he has 2 revius of wine and his 3 loaves? So he has enough for bread Friday night, Shabbos day, but only enough for 2 ceremonious drinkings of wine, because he only has 2 revius. So says the Alter Rebbe, what he should do is best. So he has 1 for Kiddush and 1 for something else, either Kiddush the next day or Havdalah the next night. So says the Alter Rebbe, better keep that wine for Havdalah the next night and use his bread to make Kiddush Shabbos day. Because on Havdalah you can never use bread. But on a Kiddush, you could use bread. So what would he be doing in this case? He would make Kiddush Friday night, eat his bread. The next day he'd make Kiddush on his bread, eat bread, and save the other cup for Havdalah. That's what he says here. Yeah, you want to say something?
No, I was gonna say that if you make it for the Kiddush on Friday night, if you haven't got the wine and you do it over the bread,
Yeah.
you say Sabri Marinano.
Yeah,
bread.
all of it, yeah.
Okay.
You do. So what you would do is if you're making Kiddush on bread, is you would wash, Metilat Yadayim, sit down, do all the process you would for Kiddush. If it's Friday night, Yom HaShishi. Okay, you do Shalom Aleichem Eshes Chayil before you wash. Shalom Aleichem Eshes Chayil, all that before you wash. Then go wash. Then sit down, pick up your cup of wine. Yom HaShishi, Safim Aranon, Baruch Atah Shem Melech Melech Olam, HaMoitzi Lechem Min Haaretz. You're holding your bread. I shouldn't be doing this because that's Kiddush. You're holding like this. And then you'd say, Baruch Atah Shem Melech Melech Olam, Asher Kiddush Adam Mitzvah Ratzavan, Shabbos Kach B'Ratzon, Mekadosh Shabbos, and then eat your bread. Cut your bread, dip it in salt, and eat it. And the same with Shabbos day. Okay?
There's no issue with you feel like you dine and then you're not doing the motzi right then after.
It's not. You're talking about making an interruption. We're going to learn in a minute in the next. In Halacha Chav Gimel, we'll learn a little bit about that, but it's not considered an interruption
Because it's
all part of the eating. Correct. It's all part and parcel. It's like saying pass the salt, which you're allowed to because it's part of the eating.
I just wanted to.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, so that's what we have now. The guy has 2 cups of wine, enough bread to go around for his 2 meals. So he keeps 1 cup of wine for Friday night Kiddush. Shabbos day he makes Kiddush on bread, and then he has the 2nd cup of wine for Havdalah. Right? Because Havdalah he cannot do on bread.
And presumably you're doing the wine on Friday night as opposed to on Saturday.
Yes.
Because Friday.
That we already discussed once before.
Right,
the hierarchy of what's important. That's right. Friday night Kiddush
is higher
than Shabbos day Kiddush. So you give preference to the wine for then. Even though the more, that's correct. That's right. That's right. Now he adds, nonetheless, in Yeshlois Sheikhar lahavdalah, if he has beer for Havdalah, the Makom Shah Sheikhar Machamar Medina, in a place where beer qualifies as wine of the region, we discussed this. Mm-hmm. If a person would drink wine as a replacement, you would invite a friend over for wine. We had the qualifications, right? Or whiskey, let's say, in our places. Then, so now he has another option. He has 2 cups of wine for Havdalah. He has 2 cups of wine. He has bread enough for Friday night and Shabbos day, and he has beer. So now, don't push off your 2nd cup of wine for Havdalah because you can use beer then. Then use that wine for the Shabbos day Kiddush and make Havdalah on beer rather than making Kiddush Shabbos day on bread.
Right. That's very loose leniency, right?
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like
we seem to learn that at the end of the day, unless you really don't have availability of wine, you shouldn't.
So he doesn't have availability of wine.
Yeah.
And the question is it better to make Havdalah on wine or make Kiddush Shabbos day on wine? So his answer is, if you have beer for Havdalah, better make Kiddush on wine than Havdalah on wine, and make your Kiddush on bread. Right. So really, if a person's in this situation, thank God, not, God willing, no one ever will be. But if a person's ever in the situation, before Shabbos, he has to take stock of what he has. How much wine do I have? How much beer do I have? How much bread do I have? And then divvy it up based on the hierarchy of the halachas here. What comes first? And then if he has a big cup, but 2 revias, how does he split it? He has to know all the halachas before he starts. Make a bracha, then pour out some wine, and make it not pogrom, all that.
So the last point you raised, because I was thinking of my own thing.
Yeah.
Listening. So the last thing is that if you have beer, then in a region that beer
qualifies,
then you should do the Havdalah on beer.
And your Shabbos day Kiddush on wine. Both Kiddush on wine. Correct. That's right. Now he says, Afilu Kiddush al Yom, even his Kiddush of Shabbos day, Kodim Havdalah comes before Havdalah. If you have to choose which of the 2 get wine, Shabbos day Kiddush gets the wine before the Havdalah. When he has the option to rely on beer, the regional wine, for his Havdalah. Right? Unless, of course, he has no beer, then he makes the wine for Havdalah and makes Kiddush on bread. Mm-hmm. So why is the Shabbos day Kiddush gets precedence over the Havdalah? Explains the Fisha Kiddush, because when it comes to Kiddush, afilu shal yom, even the daytime Kiddush, yesh omrim, there are those that say she'ein mekatchen ala sechar af b'shechamar medina. You cannot make Kiddush on beer, even if it is the wine of the region. Okay, so just commercials bar b'simin reish ayin base, as will be explained to 272. We'll learn 271. The next chapter discusses the wine for Havdalah.
It's an interesting.
Now here's the sorry, before we get to
Go ahead.
sorry, yeah. So there are three ceremonious cup holding recitations: Friday night, Shabbos day, Havdalah. Okay, in the order of timeline is the order of their prestige vis-a-vis using non-wine.
Okay.
Friday night is most strict against not using wine. We're putting bread aside for a moment, but using non-wine, whiskey, beer, we're most strict about not doing that on Friday night. Shabbos day, opinions this way, opinions that way. Some say you may not use beer for Kiddush day, Shabbos day. Some say you may. Havdalah, everybody says you're allowed to use beer, even though most say it's best to use wine. And therefore, if I only have one cup of wine, I have to choose, do I use it for Shabbos day or for Havdalah? Use it for Shabbos day. Because Shabbos day, there are those opinions which say you may not use beer. Whereas Havdalah, everybody says you can. Even if it's not best, everyone says you can. And therefore, push the Havdalah, therefore use that wine for Shabbos day and beer for Havdalah. If I have no beer, wine for Havdalah and bread for Shabbos Kiddush day. Yeah, does that cover what you want to ask?
That opinion makes more sense because of priority of wine for those different meals.
Correct.
As opposed to, well, I can't do Hamar Medina on day Kiddush, therefore it should be pushed over.
It's because
you could say the same thing about
right,
day
Havdalah.
Kiddush. You could use bread, but Havdalah can't use bread.
Right.
So that
but wine always gets
not
precedence
as-
over bread.
I'm sorry?
Wine gets precedence over bread. See, the beer,
Yeah, no, that second opinion.
the beer, it's called wine of the region. It replaces wine.
No.
And the question is, can it replace wine?
I think that last opinion was more.
Yeah, this is halacha.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can you make it over in the zones? If you don't have bread?
Yeah, we
You're
mentioned
mighty.
this. didn't
I don't
we?
think you can. It has to be bread.
What does the guy do then?
If he has no bread,
If he has just mazonis stuff.
I thought we mentioned
he
it, that
can.
make
The
it
mezanos can be used for the
Yeah.
meal in the place of your kiddush, but I don't think it can be used for kiddush itself.
Not for Kiddush, but it can be used for
For your meal in the
for
place of
your
your
meal.
kiddush. Yes, but not for your kiddush itself. What does a person do then? He has to go to his local
Right, because the broth.
local Jewish organization and say, I'm really in a bad place. I can't even afford bread for my Shabbos. He should be on the roster of all the organizations that give out money for Shabbos.
Just 2 slices.
Something. Yeah. Okay, continues. The Bedvar Mamurim. So when is this true? The Yachid Bebeisa. When we're talking about someone making Havdalah at home on his own. Aval Bebeisa Knesses. But the Havdalah, but when we're talking about a shul, and the shul now has to prioritize when to use the wine. Shabbos Kiddush Day or Havdalah. So he says, Havdalah Kademes the Kiddush. In shul, Havdalah takes priority over Kiddush. Why? Because the Kiddush Besa Knesses, the Kiddush made in shul, again, we're not talking about a shul where they have a Kiddush lunch. We're talking about a shul like we talked about once, where the shuls would make Kiddush without any meal, and no one would fulfill the obligation just to keep the custom of making Kiddush in shul. Right? So in that case, no one is fulfilling the obligation from the Kiddush, right? No one is fulfilling their obligation by listening to the Kiddush and Shul. Right?
Really?
Again, over here we have meals in Kiddush. We have meals in Shul. Here we do. Right, okay, so we had all the halachas of how we get away with it, which is why which is why many argue with this Kiddush and say you shouldn't be doing it. Remember we discussed that because no one's fulfilling the obligation. Right? So again, that doesn't count in Shul and MTC because here we have Kiddush lunch. But in many cases, they don't have any Kiddush. They just make Kiddush to keep up a custom of making Kiddush and Shul. Because once upon a time, the guests used to have their meal in the Shul, and therefore they make Kiddush and Shul.
That was the Friday night, though. That was
right. Yes. So we're including that as well. Yeah. And therefore, in that case, the Kiddush and Shul doesn't take precedence. And if you only have one cup of wine, save it for Havdalah. Havdalah, The Havdalah in shul is a mitzvah. Everybody agrees has to be done there to fulfill the obligation of one who has no wine, because Havdalah doesn't require a meal after. Anyone can listen and fulfill their obligation, and therefore in shul, Havdalah takes precedence over Kiddush. But again, today I think it would be different, considering that we do have meals in shul, and pretty much when my father makes Kiddush after the meal, everybody's fulfilling their obligation.
Yeah.
That's the point, right?
So they're equally, the members are equally relying on both
That's right.
scenarios. So then you have to take the higher one generally.
That's correct, which is the Shabbos day Kiddush. That's right. That's correct. That's correct.
If you're just two people doing Kiddush on over wine on Shabbos night, on Shabbos.
If you're two people, yeah.
Just let's say just myself and Karen.
Yeah.
Do I have to say something?
Yeah. We say seven Maranon. Okay, we should have learned this in the Rebbe's Haggadah, but we do that to we add Yom HaShishi, we add seven Maranon, because that way that paragraph, including the Yom HaShishi, equals to 72 letters, 72 words.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the mystical things. So we add seven Maranon, which is why in the Chabad custom we don't say Savi Maranon V'Rabbanon V'Rabboisai. We don't add that.
Mm-hmm.
The other communities sometimes they do, because if you do that, you get over 72. Likewise, some would say Savi Maranon or Bereshus Balabayas. Right, asking from a guest, I'm making Kiddush. I want to say with the permission of the household, I'm making Kiddush. Don't add that. Just 7 Maranon, because you want to get to the number 72. Which is also why we don't add. One of the reasons why we don't add words before Yom HaShishi, which others do as well.
Just learned something.
Yeah. So you say 7 Maranon, yes. Even if you're sitting alone, you say 7 Maranon to get to that 72. Okay. Chavez, I'll do one more halacha. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't see many people who do this. I had one teacher in one yeshiva who I saw him do this. And I think it's something, I think it's something very interesting. Let's do it quickly. So, there are 3 that inherit the world to come. The Echlemhem, one of those 3, is a Meshayar Yain B'Kiddush Havdalah, one who leaves wine left over for Havdalah. The Hainus means to say, let's see a second. Sheyesh the ma'at yayin, he has a little bit of wine, umanesh yosef b'shvil Havdalah, and pushes off Havdalah, pushes off the wine for Havdalah. So what does this mean? So if you look at, where is it? It's footnote 124, 123. Which one is it? I don't know why this is very slow with the popping up. Okay, 124. The Alter Rebbe's intent appears to be that although one makes Kiddush over wine, he should refrain from drinking too much wine to ensure that he will have wine for Havdalah. Okay, so which means I have bottles of wine. Make sure to drink too much. Save for Havdalah. There are, however, some who interpret the statement to mean that one should refrain from making Kiddush over wine and make it over bread instead, so that we have wine for Havdalah. Meaning, if I only have wine, enough for 1 cup, push it off to Havdalah and make Kiddush on bread.
2 opinions on that.
On what this means. Okay. Now further. So there are those that say, so far we all do this. We make Kiddush on wine anyway, and we make sure we have wine left over for Havdalah. So if you only have 1 bottle of wine at home, be aware to make sure you leave some for Havdalah. Okay. Yesh Emir Mother say, he should make Kiddush on Friday night over a big cup. That cup itself, for which he made Kiddush on Friday night, there should be enough wine left over for both Havdalah and the Shabbos day Kiddush. The Takan Oisid
3
reviewers. The Takan Oisid Piggy Masai, and he'll unpugamize it by adding commission is bar lamala, as explained before, by adding wine and pouring it back in the bottle. And that way, the same wine over which you made Kiddush Friday night is again beginning to be used for Shabbos day and again for Havdalah. And during his meal on Friday night, you drink other wine. It's good to follow this practice. I've only seen one person do it. One person I know did it, I've seen. But this is a halacha. Yeah. Okay. God willing, we'll get to Kiddush about bread over tomorrow, God willing. Have a wonderful day, Eden.